Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Estelle, and today I'm doing something a little different. I am here with my husband, Suman, and we're doing a little intuitive conversation, a little interview style chat, because I wanted to introduce everyone to what I live and breathe when it comes to meditation and spirituality and spiritual philosophy. A lot of what I know about meditation and about spiritual philosophy, especially ancient spiritual philosophy, comes from conversations I have had with my husband. So this is a little peek into kind of a Saturday morning, breakfast over, the table, driving to family gatherings, what we're doing really together as two Geminis. So we have a lot going on in the mental area, and we love talking about philosophy, spiritual philosophy, and as well as health and natural health, because Suman is actually a chiropractor and a naturopath. He has a practice with that. And as I have known you, I have seen you really taking a different direction with your practice into more meditation mentorship, meditation instructing with your clients. People are coming to you for help in the spiritual world because it affects their health. And that is something that I have also personally gotten to see you do. I'll be sick, runny nose and all of that, and I'll just really need a lot of supplements, and it takes me days to kind of feel better. Whereas I noticed that you, instead of taking the supplements, I'm seeing you going and meditating, and you're getting through it a lot quicker than me. And, I've learned from you about what that is. And I feel like your patients are really doing the same thing. And I think it's a topic that we need to talk about more. So if you don't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself personally and professionally.
Hi, my dear. Thank you so much for the introduction. So, like you said, what I have been doing over the past number of years is helping my patients go from needing health to teaching them how to heal themselves, right? And so that's really the ultimate holy grail for anyone on the healing path, is to understand, okay, I do all these things for myself. I see all these practitioners. I've got the proper mindset. Okay, how can I get to the point where I heal myself? And so that takes proper understanding. It takes practice. It takes, frankly, learning how to go within, right? And so meditation is the primary way to do that. And so that's what I've been doing with, patients, primarily getting to them to a point, they may not begin there, but eventually they get to a place where, okay, you're at a pretty good place, or now is a time where we need to focus on some stress management, right? Learn how to relax, usually begins
Right.
with that. And so we get into what meditation means. And then
Right.
as we go along, eventually we get into mindfulness, right? How to apply mindfulness in meditation in daily life that is tied in with stress management, learning how to handle stress better, of course.
Right.
Most people know stress is usually the root cause of most issues we have.
Right.
And so eventually, once people start to go down that path of, oh, I can sit with myself, direct my mind in a certain way, learn how to relax my mind and body, and that starts to balance me. It makes me feel better. It actually stabilizes my hormones. It lowers my blood pressure, right? And anytime you get into a relaxed state, that is more of a healthy state. And then that eventually leads to more advanced stages, which I'm sure we'll talk about,
Right.
this morning, in terms of, you know, the more still you get, the more still your body and mind gets, you start to activate energy in the body, right? And so that activation of energy is really that healing force that everyone's wanting and
Right.
trying to activate. And so that naturally starts to happen, right? And
Right.
so once you get good at it, which anyone can do with practice, and once you get good at it, what happens is the body and mind start to naturally listen to you quicker and quicker. So if, for example, like with your example, you've got a runny nose and you've got some congestion. So there's some blockages in your head and the channels in your head. There's some imbalance. Your immune system is trying to work to get rid of something. It may not always be an infection, could be some toxins, could be some emotional stuff you're getting rid of, but there's something you're getting rid of, right? And so meditation can be a way to go, okay, hold on, I'm going to get still and really let my body get rid of what it needs to in the time I'm meditating. And so that dramatically accelerates this process of that's already happening where your body is getting rid of stuff. So it
Right.
dramatically accelerates it to where instead of lasting 3 days, it may last 2 hours. Right. And that's kind of the main gist of it. You're accelerating these natural processes of healing.
Exactly. Because I have noticed there's kind of a like a step, like a process to it where, people really need to kind of get to a stable place in their health before they have to kind of reach maybe like a baseline even before they're able to even have the presence of mind or just the physical ability to meditate. And then once they've, kind of covered the basis of whatever health stuff is going on, then they're able to move into, okay, deeper levels of meditation and concentration, which then addresses any depression or anxiety going on.
Right. Anxiety and depression, the way I talk about it with people is it's something is trying to come up inside of you.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
And when it's trying to come up, how it feels to you will depend on kind of your makeup, your body type, your energy type, your past history and tendencies to whether it'll show up as anxiety or depression, or sometimes both. But generally, for most people, one will predominate, right? So, in anxiety is kind of easier to understand because you feel something tangibly coming up. It's like this racy feeling, this tension, these panic attacks come and go. And so it's what it really is, it's energy surfacing out of
Mm-hmm.
your control. In most cases, it's coming up in surges. And so that energy creates discomfort in us because it's the energy ultimately is something that is needing to come up, whether it's
Right.
triggered or not triggered, but it's needing to come up because there's pressure there inside. So when it comes up, it'll come up in a certain way, and you may not like the way it's coming up, right? And that's what
Right.
we call anxiety.
Yeah.
Or it's wanting to come up, and our clamps go down, and we shut it down. We still feel the pressure of it wanting to come up, but we don't let it, and we kind of call that depression.
Right.
It's different, but it's the same underlying issue going on. Something is trying to come up, and you're having a problem on how to deal with it because of the discomfort associated with
Right.
it, right?
Yeah.
And so, how you deal with the discomfort is now getting into mindfulness, right? And that's really the understanding of mindfulness and what that really means, which is something you practice in meditation, right?
Right.
How to handle your thoughts and feelings and sensations and be neutral to them. Learn how to practice that neutrality, right? Which is
Right.
the basis of meditation. So, for someone starting off, yeah, if they're at the beginner level, they've never meditated, and they want to get into it, but it's hard for them to sit quiet, right? They sit and their body gets restless or their mind just kind of goes off and they can't focus on whatever it is they're trying to focus on in the meditation process. Well, what that means is you've got to give your body a chance just to relax. And so for them, meditation becomes a tool for relaxation. So you're sitting there and you apply specific techniques, and usually then you have got to focus on your breath. You if you're having a hard time starting off, you gotta just regulate your breathing, right? And so you just do some deep breathing,
Yeah.
which becomes like a meditative practice for beginners, right? Do some deep
Right.
breathing.
Yeah.
That helps calm the sympathetic nervous system, the active part of our body and brain. And that then leads to, progression.
Right. And you mentioned the other day, and I wanted you to kind of talk about this, how meditation is the most ancient technology on the planet. And that's why
Yeah.
it's really so important.
The way I think I described it, it was the most ancient spiritual technology that one can do themselves to help them transform and expand their consciousness. And it becomes the basic vehicle and foundation for any type of internal work you want to do, for any purpose, whether it's healing or
Yeah.
intuition development,
Yeah.
psychic cultivation, spiritual progression, spiritual awakening, um, simply relaxing, right?
Right.
It's the
Physical
primary technology that we have had for thousands of years, right? That has been there all along in every tradition. Every culture has had it and
Right.
practiced it in different ways. But it's one of our main gifts that was given to us.
Yeah. It's been given to us. And I've noticed, I've mentioned this before in my lives, that really it's like Christianity, or maybe the West, maybe it's just North America, I don't know, really took it out, really took meditation out of their philosophy and teachings.
Yeah, well, and I think that stems from um, the Semitic traditions, those
Mm.
being Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. There are mystical sects in each of those traditions, right? There are mystical Christians, there are
Right.
mystical Jews, and there are mystical Muslims, right? So those each have been there for a long time, and some would say they even predated the original religions that got organized around it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So in a sense, originally it was a mystical meditative based tradition. The Gnostics were meditating in early Christianity. The early Christians were meditating. That's all they were doing. Right?
Right.
And in the Eastern Orthodox, the original offshoot of Christianity that developed in Eastern
Mm.
Europe, their primary practices are meditation.
Yeah.
The Catholic saints, right? All they were doing is meditating,
Yeah.
right? The Sufis of Islam, their primary practice is meditation. And some would even say Sufism predates Islam because it was even there before Muhammad, but
Mm.
Islam kind of took it in and became
Yeah.
them, right?
Kind of
And
gets
Judaism, of course,
absorbed.
yeah, Judaism, of course, has the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life and
Right.
meditation. The Old Test the patriarchs of the Old Testament, right? They're not talking about meditation in the Old Testament, but I guarantee you they were meditating.
That's what they were doing for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And so,
So
as kind of with your question, as you talked about how in the West through modern times it was lost. If I recall, we were kind of talking about the modern day mystery schools
right.
and Theosophy, Anthroposophy, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, all those offshoots from those.
Yeah.
They what I found in studying those, there's often a lack of focus on meditation.
Yeah. True.
Specifically, when they do talk about meditation, it's about how to harness certain abilities,
Right.
right?
Yes. How to get powers.
Exactly. How to open a third eye, how
Right.
to, you know,
How to levitate.
how to levitate, practice telepathy, or,
Yeah.
different, as in the East, they will call them lower powers, lesser
Yep.
powers,
Okay.
right? So how to practice those and using meditation to do that. Of course, you see that in the occult traditions, right? Most of the mystery schools are based on occult traditions as well.
Right.
And occult traditions, by definition, are focusing on meditation as a way to harness occult powers. And they may mix in, ritual, hence doing spells or pagan traditions, Wiccan traditions, but essentially they're using ritual combined with meditation to harness power, to do things, right? But the original essence of the ultimate potential of meditation that you still have in the Eastern traditions, where it's a form of spiritual cultivation, that was kind of lost, like you're saying, in
Right.
the West.
Right. And you often talk about how this spiritual tradition or this form is a system. And oftentimes the West will pick things out of the system instead of, and it kind of takes it out of context. I kind of want you
Right.
to.
That's, in my opinion, a big issue. It's one of my personal pet peeves looking around. And, when I look at,
Kind of the new age current fads going.
yeah, and you see it in so many elements, just starting with yoga, for example, right?
Yeah,
Yoga or Kundalini yoga, right? Some of these on the surface, you would think, oh, these are actually Eastern practices.
right.
But why am I here sitting here from an Eastern perspective criticizing these Eastern practices?
Yeah,
Like you're saying, they are pulled out of context and focused on exclusively, which takes away the inherent potential of what they were used for.
right.
Right. And so, for example, the easiest example that most people understand already is the yoga of doing different postures, right? Asanas,
Asanas.
basic yoga class that everyone goes to.
Right.
And you have different forms of that now, but essentially holding a posture and relaxing in that pose was just one part of what's called the 8 limbs of Raja Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, right? The 8 limbs of a path that was laid out thousands of years ago, right? As a way to purify the body, to open up the channels. And there's a lot of other stuff you need to do besides that. As
Yeah.
part of that path, right? But when someone just does yoga and goes to a class, they never get any of that,
Right.
right? And they may get it now if they kind of dive into teacher training with yoga, but if they find certain classes that do breath work, for example, pranayama practices, and pranayama itself is just the next stage
Right.
after asanas in those 8 limbs, right? So, okay, they're getting those 2 stages now. Good.
Right.
But you're still missing out on the rest, which the point was the rest is there as a traditional pathway to cultivating the totality of yourself in a spiritual way.
Right. Okay. So what would you say the true meaning of yoga is?
Well, the original meaning of yoga it comes from a Sanskrit word yoke, to unite, to bring together.
Okay.
Okay. So the way it's been described is bringing together the lower self to the higher self. It's bringing together the self with the divine, right? It's a combining word. You're bringing something smaller, combining with something greater, is the
Right.
idea of yoga,
Right.
right? So that's what it was originally meant. And so based on that, specifically in Hinduism, right, you have different yogas,
Right.
different paths
Right.
to do that.
Right. Yeah, like I liked how you mentioned like bhakti yoga being the path of love, which is very Christian.
Right,
And jnana yoga being like the
right,
path of knowledge,
right.
Buddhist.
Yes. And we were discussing how, like, in the one of the main traditional scriptures in Hinduism is the Bhagavad Gita, right? The Song of God,
Right.
narrated by Krishna, right? And that's
Yep.
it's part of the Mahabharata itself, a massive epic story that many have heard about, right? But in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a spiritual compilation of the teachings Krishna spoke about. And so in there, he delineates what he described as the main types of yoga that a human can partake in, depending on their tendencies, their inclinations, their preferences, right, and their makeup. So predominantly there being two foundational paths of yoga, either through the heart or through the mind.
Okay.
Okay, so bhakti yoga being the yoga of the heart, devotion, worship, right? The popular, most of modern day religion of worshiping a god
Right.
is a form of bhakti yoga.
Okay.
You see, it's an externalized form of basic bhakti yoga where you are giving yourself onto something greater, right?
Mm,
You are surrendering yourself to something greater, right? The whole intention of bhakti yoga is to use the heart to transcend the self,
right.
right? And so there are different levels of bhakti yoga. There are different, ways to go about doing that, and you find that in different traditions. So, like, you're mentioning, many Hindus would describe different religions as different systems of yoga. So Christianity is, right, a
Right.
religion of love, ideally, originally, right, of
Right.
learning how to cultivate unconditional love for all beings, as Christ did,
Right.
right? And so that is bhakti yoga,
Yeah.
really. And so, the other yoga up through the mind is called jnana yoga. It's a little confusing when you see the word. It's usually spelled, G-N-A-N-A in English. So it kind of confuses
Okay.
speakers,
Right.
English speakers who see that, but it's actually pronounced jnana
Okay.
usually. Um, but that is the path through the mind
Mm,
primarily. And that is a lot of what Buddhism is based on. That is a lot of what many traditions in Hinduism are based on, Vedanta, and the traditions of gnosis, gaining higher knowledge, okay, and how
right.
things really work, and the knowledge of the self, and learning what the self is not. And all of that kind of falls into the path of the mind. But the thing to keep in mind is both of these paths are based on meditation.
Yeah.
They're both based on meditative practices, but they're geared towards different things, ultimately reaching the same place. And so, Krishna even
Yes.
says, look, you need both,
Okay.
for, and that's the thing, what many people miss, they kind of think of it as either or, but
Yeah.
it's really, you know, if you want a complete spiritual path, you need to cultivate both.
Right.
Some people may start off in one or the other, but eventually a balance does happen.
Right. It is
And
about balance.
right. And even in some of the very hardcore mind-based paths, like for example, many forms of Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, there's a lot of focus on meditation to cultivate the mind, expand consciousness, and gain, true knowledge.
Right.
But as you go along, you start coming across very serious practices of heart opening,
Yeah.
metta meditation practices,
Right.
compassion-based practices, right? Those are instilled in Tibetan Buddhist traditions and the Mahayana Buddhist traditions mainly focus on that. So you find elements of, again, what I'm saying, how the
Yeah.
Hindus described originally, bhakti and jnana.
Okay.
And of course, karma yoga is the third, almost kind of like the third path, but it's really encompasses both, but it's the path of action where you put into play
Mm,
and you do things not for the sake of yourself,
interesting.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's the highest path of selfless action,
Okay. It's like a path of service.
path of service, right?
Okay.
And what happens is if you cultivated enough of the two foundational practices of bhakti and jnana, you have to put into play with karma yoga,
Okay.
right? That's what it kind of comes down to.
Right.
Like,
Action.
now
Yeah.
be amongst people and serve and help who you need to without thinking of yourself, without, and the way Krishna would describe it, without being attached to the fruits of your actions.
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you do something and you think, okay, this something will make me get something,
Okay.
right? So you're getting attached to the fruits of your actions, is how you would describe it.
Right.
That's karma yoga.
That makes sense. And they're all, you said, based on meditation?
They're all based on meditation because karma yoga is something anyone can practice that, right? And
Right.
many people just involuntarily do practice it, especially as they start to, get on spiritual path or just even good people,
Yeah.
right?
Good people
Good
do
people are
good.
the ones who are really practicing karma yoga. The
Okay.
selfless
Right.
actions that come from people is an actual natural form of karma yoga, right?
Okay.
So, but that becomes an actual higher practice that is promoted by meditative practice
Right.
because one of the foundations of meditation is mindfulness.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have proper mindfulness, what you're doing is you're acting from a very neutral, open space. Hence, the goal of mindfulness is not to be attached to the effect of
Right.
whatever's happening. You just
Yeah.
experience it, right? And again, that is obviously what karma yoga is, right? You're doing something without any attachment to the end result.
Right. Not you're learning non-reactive.
Right, the non-reactive self.
Yeah. So how do you recommend that people should meditate?
Great question. Meditation is simply, first off, the first stage is learning how to go with it. Right, you've got to turn the gaze inward with intention, right? And so we're so not used to doing that. All day long, we're focused outward, right? And
Right.
what the senses are telling us, and we're swimming in these reactions from the
Yeah.
senses and how they're making us feel all day long.
Right.
Our mind interprets them good or bad. And so we're focused on outside continuously. So the first stage of meditation is, okay, look, find something to focus on inside of you to keep your attention there. Just
Mm.
start with that, right? And so, in many techniques, you start with something simple like the breath, or a sound, or a word, or a simple visualization, or part of your body.
Right.
It doesn't matter to begin with. You pick something simple, and the way I describe it, that becomes your anchor, right?
Yeah.
And it's literally like a boat with an anchor in a deep lake, in an ocean.
Right.
You need the anchor to keep yourself in the same place. So that's the point of pulling your attention inward. Your attention has to go somewhere, right? We all have this little point of attention, right? We like move around like a little ping pong ball. Okay. Right now it's on the video screen, right? Right
Right.
now it's on our faces. Something happens, it'll move over to something else. So the little ping pong ball is always going everywhere.
Right.
And the idea is we want to be in control of that.
Ideally.
But so that point of attention, when it goes inward, it's still there. So we want to fixate it and anchor it so it doesn't just ping pong around like crazy inside of us now. Right.
Right.
And so you can do that, but that you'll end up kind of being stuck there because it'll just be moving around and eventually it'll tire you out.
Hmm.
Right. And it won't lead you to any states of stillness
Right.
unless you've been able to anchor that attention to a good extent. Then you can expand your awareness. But
Right.
that gets into
And
more deeper advanced stages.
right. But that makes me think of the way that I used to meditate. The way I used to think I was meditating I would kind of come out of it ungrounded and a little exhausted because I didn't have an anchor. And so
Right.
it was like just being kind of like tossed around. And before that, I knew I kind of just didn't really have any energy. And I just seemed a little like not there. Like I didn't feel grounded. I didn't feel less anxious. So that's a really good description of, how to really properly meditate, or at least get your time, make the most worth out of your time.
right? It makes a big difference with meditation, how you go about doing it.
It does. And people make it think, just anyone, just everyone knows how automatically. And then that's where I think people get a little frustrated because it's a little bit, I think it takes some instruction.
Right.
I needed instruction. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone who wants to progress needs instruction, you know,
Right.
and, my history of meditation started from a very specific place, but then when I received, as I went along, I received instruction in different ways that really allowed me to see, oh, okay, I need to shift my practice this way if I
Hmm.
want to get to the next level,
Okay.
right? So that's a
Yeah.
really important thing for people to realize, that if you know how to meditate and you think you're making progress, good.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
And there are different stages and
Right.
different ways to then focus what you're cultivating in meditation to actually traverse the spiritual path.
Right. So how would you describe those stages? Like what could people look forward to or work for? What could be kind of a motivation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the most important questions we need to ask, right? Because people on a spiritual path, they get on a spiritual path and eventually come across, oh, you got to meditate. Okay, so here's how to do it. Here's how to start out. Okay, I'm going to start out doing that. They close their eyes, they start going inward, they start having experiences, or it's hard, or it's easy, or
Hmm.
whatever.
Right.
And then they keep learning new things, right? They keep learning about spiritual things that they can experience,
Yeah.
right? They start understanding, oh, you know, I can feel energy in my body. I can learn to see things. I can get in touch with my intuition. They start to read and hear about the potential
Kind of
of,
the new
let's
age
call it,
stuff.
right. It's all in the new age stuff. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. And, it's in the Eastern traditions too, like what will happen if you progress on the spiritual path.
Right.
Oh, Kundalini will awaken.
Right.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
New
realize
age
what that
has
means.
taken the Eastern stuff and have kind of put it out there,
Right.
like Kundalini awakening.
Right. And what is that really? Right.
Yeah.
And when that happens, what do you do? What does that mean? What's the point of it?
Exactly.
Right. And so if it's taken out of context, you lose the bigger picture, which ultimately, remember, these are all meant to help you spiritually awaken,
Right.
or in other words, how it's been described, enlightenment, right? Full awakening, liberation, the big E word, ascension, whatever you want to call it, the end goal of human potential, right, is where this all is supposed to lead, is what we read about and what we hear
Right.
about, right? And so, but usually we're not taught how to go about doing that.
Right.
Or we get the basics in the beginning, but then you miss out on all the middle stuff.
Right.
And you
So
hear the end.
yes, kind of like that's kind of what I see new age doing right now, kind of giving you like snippets. Oh, I had a Kundalini awakening. Oh, awaken the light body. And everyone is here and they've missed everything in between to get to a Kundalini activation, which to me is really also just a Uranus aspect in your chart that maybe is just a timing thing and is not necessarily something to be so like proud that you've like achieved something as much as you've hit a milestone, and that's an newish initiation, or then there's this light body, which is kind of like the end process to enlightenment, and then none of people are kind of skipping to the end without
Right.
having meditated, I have noticed. But so with all of that, describe for us, how would you describe kundalini? What is the true meaning of a kundalini awakening?
That's a very important question.
Right.
And Kundalini in its raw sense means coiled serpent. Okay, that's what the word breaks down to.
It means
Okay,
coiled serpent.
coiled serpent,
Yeah.
a serpent that's coiled at the base of your spine,
Right.
right? So now the reality is it's a process,
Right.
a long process, a journey. The Kundalini process is. It should be called a process, right? So
Right. Kundalini process rather than a Kundalini activation. I like that.
yeah, and we have many Kundalini activations as part of the process.
Right.
Some may be more intense and dramatic than others. Some may be very subtle, and you may not even notice it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I call them Kundalini activations, right?
Yeah.
So people have Kundalini activations early on in their
Right.
spiritual path,
For
and they
sure.
may not realize it, but they may feel certain things, they may have certain realizations, certain awakenings, certain shifts, healing. So the reason I say it's happening and people don't realize it because Kundalini is tied in with the vital force in the body. Okay, chi, prana. So I'm going to use the word chi for simplicity. So, the movement of chi in the body is moving through channels. Okay, different subtle channels. You can call them meridians. In
Right.
medicine, you can call them
Yeah.
nadis in India.
Okay.
But there are these subtle channels through our body that this chi is moving through. Okay.
Right.
And so basic health begins with learning how to balance that chi, clearing out blockages and activating more flow of chi.
Right.
So Kundalini, and the way I kind of see things, I like to bring things back down to earth and really make things simplistic and realistic,
Right.
right? So Kundalini has a lot of, it's been romanticized. There's a lot of religious dogma, mythical mysticism
Yeah.
associated with it. And all that can be true for someone. But the reality is it's a bioenergetic phenomenon that's inherent in every human that will happen eventually on their spiritual path. And what happens is it's tied in with this chi. At a certain point, you clear enough blockages, you
Right.
activate enough to where
Yeah.
what happens is that chi starts to mobilize in your pelvic center. Okay, it starts to gather because you've done enough healing, enough clearing work, enough purification, whatever, or
Right.
it's like you said, astro, it's the right time in your chart, in your path, with your karma, whatever the situation is.
Right.
Enough chi is able to gather in your pelvic center. Okay, it's called the lower dantian in the Chinese system,
Right.
first two chakras, right? But enough energy gathers there, enough pressure builds to where the central channels in your spine start to open up.
Hmm.
Okay, so traditionally, the technical definition of Kundalini is when the energy enters the central channel of the spine, right? This central tube is how they describe it, right?
Right.
It's called the, Sushumna in yoga. It's called the Tai Chi Po in Taoism, but it's the central channel that goes through the spine, connects the root chakra to the crown chakra, is the idea,
Right.
okay? And above and beyond as well, okay? To the sun and to the center of the earth.
Hmm.
Thinking
Yeah.
of it, a lot of meditations are based on that. So the central channel, if the energy gets in there, that is now the beginning of the Kundalini activation. Okay. But the reality is, what most people are experiencing is all the preliminary effect and preparation to Kundalini actually entering central channel. Because, like I said, there are spinal accessory channels that go up the back, down the front, and then twist around the spine. Okay.
Right.
Those accessory channels have to open up first. And
Right.
that's where most healing and clearing happens in a person, even in spiritual work. That's where they start to feel stuff. So, like, for example, when you're first meditating, your low back may start to hurt,
Yeah.
or
Right.
your mid back may start to hurt. Now, you may mistakenly think, oh, the Kundalini is activating and it's clearing out my lower chakras now. Well, not really. What's happening is the spinal accessory channels are now opening up at that level, and that's what's clearing out.
Hmm.
You follow? And so, and the reason to know that is because there's a long period of clearing of those spinal accessory channels that have to happen,
Right.
months and years before it's purified enough to enter the central channel,
Hmm.
right? And so that's, a big thing I really want people to realize is like, look, a lot of dramatic phenomenon where you feel surges of energy up your back
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
heightened awareness in certain parts of your spine that you think is Kundalini, honestly, probably is not. Unfortunately, it's pre-Kundalini happening. You're still on the Kundalini pathway, right?
Right.
But it's technically not traditional Kundalini. And so a big confusion happens is, especially if they're really focused on yoga and Indian-based traditions, the energy is supposed to rise from this, from the bottom of the spine to the top of the head, to the crown chakra. Once it gets there, you're enlightened. Okay, and the reality is, no, you're not. That's part of the process. And if you go into more of the traditional yogic traditions that are use Kundalini yoga as part of their system, well, then what you do is you get into more advanced meditation practices to bring the energy back down,
Hmm.
right? And so that is kind of what you miss, like what you're kind of alluding to, how in certain simplified Western places, things are taken out of context and
Right.
you lose the bigger picture and the essence.
Right.
And so the point is, okay, you can awaken all kinds of energy. That's great. But then you have to ground it.
Right.
You have to embody it,
Yes.
right? And you have to learn how to be with it when you come out of the shower, when you're eating lunch, when you
Right.
stub your toe, when your baby's crying in bed,
Doing
right?
it.
All those little moments, can you embody all those things you've cultivated? I mean, that's really the true spiritual path, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good point because I feel like it's a kind of a fad to bring all the energy up, to like bring it all up, to the head and activate the third eye and the crown and all of this stuff. And then it tends to leave people ungrounded. I see so much kind of ungrounded states just because people aren't given, I feel like, proper direction. They don't have proper instruction and we don't have the system.
Right. And so if they have some instruction to ground, that's going to help them.
Absolutely. So say, people are outside in nature and they maybe bare feet on the ground. Is that naturally kind of bringing that energy back down?
Right. You want to create a circuit,
Yeah.
right? So the circuit is very important with, like I was saying, the spinal accessory channels. And for those interested, it's the Du and the Ren channel in Chinese medicine, right? It's the consumption and governing vessel that goes up the back, down the front. It's the microcosmic orbit, as
Okay.
a lot of people are into, right? So the microcosmic orbit, even in Taoism, they say that, look, if you do nothing else but practice the microcosmic orbit, it takes 3 months to really open and activate the microcosmic orbit.
Okay.
Okay. So it takes 3 months to do that, right? 90 days of hardcore practice to do that. Now, and that's still not Kundalini, right? But when you're doing the microcosmic orbit, it can feel like Kundalini. You're going to feel stuff going up your back.
And it feels kind of electrical to me. It
Yeah,
feels like electric impulses like flying up the spine and almost like electric shocks. I mean, it can be really uncomfortable for me.
right,
But it does fade after a time
right. Yes.
if I keep
True
going.
Kundalini awakening does not fade,
Okay.
right? And the reason, when I'm saying all this, just so you know, I mean, you obviously know that the people, I'm not making any of this up. Because what I'm relating to you are things that actually have been described and written in the
Right.
traditional wisdom traditions, the Enlightenment tradition,
Right.
right?
And
They've outlined all of this in detail.
Exactly. And that's what I feel like you're really good at doing, is you're really good at kind of putting all of this religious philosophy into practice and also into context. And not only do you know like Hindu, but you also have some of the like Taoist tradition, like Chinese, and then you also have Buddhist knowledge that you're able to kind of blend together and meet people really where they're at, I've noticed, or meet whatever vocabulary, you're hearing on, a new age podcast or something. You're able to be like, okay, I know what they're talking about. And, this is kind of
Right.
what this is, it fits into the system here or here. And it's just a small part. And we talk about this all the time, how it's like, okay, maybe that's taken out of context. Okay, maybe we could talk more about that. And one of the things that really gets both of us is ascension. We love to rail about the misuse of the term ascension and enlightenment. So, like, what are the definitions and how do they differ, if there's a difference?
The big A is such a hot topic, ascension, right?
Everyone's talking about it.
And in my opinion, it is so overused and misused. And unfortunately, because I think the reality is ascension is a reality, right?
Right.
The
Yes.
true,
It is our goal. It is our
the
end.
true idea of how even most people talk about the light body ascension, right?
Right.
That is a reality.
Right.
Right? It is the ultimate potential of human evolution, in my opinion, to have full mastery over the body and the mind and your energy body and all your bodies, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that is full ascension.
Right.
And in doing that, yes, you can create a light body if you want. You can have powers. You can, traverse dimensional planes. You can do the greater powers, the siddhis, as they're called, which have been described in traditions in detail. But, big but, is my big pet peeve. Most everywhere I look, especially in the New Age Western movements, nobody is honest or aware of what it really takes to get to that level.
Right.
And the big thing that frankly disturbs me is this idea that it will automatically happen to all of us as the planet ascends with the coming new age, right? So what that means is, if you're saying that, what that means is, over a period of time, everything that happens when someone goes through the real process of ascension, as has been chronicled in, historically, the changes in the body, the changes in the mind, in the heart, in consciousness, and getting used to those changes, which takes time, right? Because we're talking about a whole different level of being an ascended master has compared to a normal human, right? And so it's like, imagine how much adjustment period it takes from like summer to winter for most people, or going from one city to a new city, right? You're talking about getting a completely new body, a new mind, a new heart, right? A new connection to divinity and to reality. And you're saying that's going to happen to you automatically because the earth is going to go through something, and it's going to probably happen maybe in a short period of time, right? Say even a few years. So you're telling me someone who, these ascended masters who have cultivated lifetimes, and in the lifetime they ascended, they cultivated most of their life. Professionally speaking, that's all they're doing, usually. Now you're telling me now humans are going to go through this in a matter of, say, years, months, days, this full transformation, and then be able to function with a new self like that?
Yeah.
With this analogy, if that doesn't make people just kind of go, oh, yeah, okay, wait a minute, there must be a lot more to this than that, right?
Logically, it does make sense when it's pointed out.
Right. And so that's the thing, to attain light body ascension, which has happened historically, and Christ is not the only example,
Right.
right? And that's the thing, there are many examples of light body ascension
Right.
historically speaking. So, and you look at what they went through, the pain they went through, that it takes to really confront the deepest aspects of your shadow, right? Because you want to ascend, you're going to have to go through your shadow. You're going to have to go through the shadow world,
You're going to have to go
right?
through the shadow. That's what you're balancing.
Right,
So you can't bypass it. You can't skip it. You
right,
can't just stay in the pleasure or, just stay in what feels good. You don't want to just stay in that either. You don't want to just stay in the shadow either.
right.
We can't stay on the internet researching all this, stuff
Yeah,
all I mean, we can't stay on the internet, researching MK Ultra all day. That's not going to help.
right. You need balance.
Balance.
And from this ascension point of view, what that means is you have to fully be able to feel the extreme pain of yourself, of all aspects of yourself. You have to be able to handle the extreme pleasure of all aspects of yourself
Right.
simultaneously, integratively. Right? So you're telling me that's just going to happen, or the amount of work that someone thinks they've done in this lifetime, right? That's sufficient for
Right.
a little bit of push by the Earth's planetary ascension to kind of get you over the hump.
Right. And I do think there is something to that. I mean, I do think we are receiving new energy, new light, new radiation from perhaps a new sun or from the sun behind our sun, or this great central sun, that it's kind of bathing the planet in ascension sort of energy. It's here to lift us up.
Totally.
But we have to meet it halfway. We can't
Right.
expect that to do all the work for us. We need to ride that wave, not miss it, so to speak, right?
Right.
That's kind of the idea that I don't know if people are explaining that we're supposed to use this new spiritual light rather, than just sit back on our laurels and expect it to do anything, to do the work for us.
Right. So, what the way I think about it is, okay, if you think you're ready for ascension, and what you're saying is completely true. Yes, the Earth is being bathed by cosmic radiation, solar radiation, all kinds of energy, right? And all that has to do with the shift of the ages. All those things are happening. Yes.
Right. And the weather changing
Right.
to the sun changing, there is truth to that.
Right. Our place around the galactic center, it's shifting, and all those things have been happening. It's been going on, and like as an aside, it's been happening for decades. It's just not a new event, as a lot of people mistakenly, who recently entered the New Age world, would seem to mistaken. But the point is, yes, those things are happening, but once you start doing work and you start doing some significant healing work, and that's good, what happens is you start to feel better. Okay, you start to feel good. You can have more expanded states of consciousness or feeling better, regardless of the type of work you're doing. And
Right.
ideally, it's more permanent type of an experiential state that you're cultivating, not a temporary fix. That usually happens when you're usually just primarily doing plant medicine or psychedelics, things like that are just temporary fixes, right? Or even spiritually, you're just getting attached to activities and meditations that make you feel good. Okay, so, but you're practicing feeling good, which is good. What I'm saying is, as far as in the context of ascension, are you practicing feeling pain as a counterbalance, which goes back to the shadow work, right? The problem is pleasure is so addictive. Feeling good is so addictive, especially if you've had a history of trauma and pain. Yeah, you don't want to feel that stuff. So you start feeling good and you love it. You want to stay there.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's understanding the reality of really what's happening. Okay, I have this new place of healing and health, and it feels really good.
Right.
Good. Don't mistake that
Yeah.
for what people call ascension, right? And because I would ask you then, if you were to come to me and say, okay, look, am I going to ascend? I would tell you a few specific things. I would ask you specifically, okay, answer yourself honestly these questions. Okay. And that'll give you your answer. First of all, have you addressed all your addictions and traumas? Do they still affect you? Okay. Automatically, that'll take out most people. Okay. And if you have, and there are many people who have, okay, good. Have you had a significant Kundalini awakening and seen the effects of it? So the effects of it would mean when Kundalini is stabilized, and these are how it's described in the meditative traditions when they get into samadhi. They talk about what samadhi truly is and the four factors of samadhi, right? And
Right.
so the two of those factors of samadhi directly correlate to Kundalini, which means you have rapture of the mind and bliss of the body. So is your body in a continuous state of bliss to where it feels wonderful? Okay, you have no aches and pains that linger. You may still have things that come up, but they clear within moments or minutes or hours. Okay, is your body in so clear and full of bliss to where it's got wonderful energy flowing through it? Okay, that's the bliss body. That's when Kundalini has awakened and expanded into the cells. Okay, and so is your mind in a rapture state? Now that means your mind is able to stay at a still point,
Right.
no matter what is happening around you, no matter how stressed you are, no matter how triggered you are. Okay, you are still connected to that still point while that's happening. Now that's an advanced state of mindfulness too. That's how it all kind of plays in. But that is a hallmark of rapture of the mind. So if you've got all that going on, okay, then I would say, okay, you're probably primed for ascension. But if you want to ascend now, what you have to do is the missing element here that you kind of read about from the actual works of the Ascended Masters. They talk about, they then spend years transforming the elements of their body. Now, this is the big thing that is missed, okay? Transformation of all the 5 elements of the body, purifying them, transcending them with your consciousness, and getting control over them.
And what are the 5 elements of the body?
So earth, air, fire, water, and spirit or ether.
Okay.
Right? So true ascension means true connection, transformation, transcendence, and control over those 5 elements within you. Right? That's what true ascension is. So when one does that, that's when they can control over the elements and they can do the superpowers.
Okay.
Right? When you control, say, for example, the way you described it, when you control the earth element, you gain mastery over size and density. So you can make yourself as big or small as you want to. Right? Like
Right.
when you gain mastery over the air element, you can traverse the ethers dimensionally at will. Right. So it kind of goes on and on like that, right? So
yeah, it's very Alice in Wonderland.
That's the work of transformation that happens if one so chooses to reach the level of light body ascension. Okay? Now, here's the rub. Many, many great beings on the planet in our current cycle didn't choose to do that. Okay? For example, a great example I give is, okay, you think ascension is so important, and you think light body ascension is so important. The Buddha did not light body ascend. Okay, he gave up his physical body consciously. Okay, but even before his death, he was able to do all the abilities of full light body ascension already.
Yeah.
Right, but his death was a normal physical death. Right? So my point is, it gets very confusing when you try to now look at how someone dies,
Right.
versus their level of spiritual attainment,
Right.
and judging them based on that, or if someone isn't ascending or doesn't ascend, they're not as spiritual, or someone who does ascend, they are spiritual.
Yeah, it's not really a hierarchy.
Right. It doesn't really
Why
work
would
the same
you
way.
say that the Buddha would have chosen not to ascend in the light body? What would it be? What would be someone's reason for that?
Well, I can only imagine, right? And so it could be to, one of the Buddha's big things was he wanted people to practice first and not philosophize first. Okay. He left philosophy for second.
Yeah, he wanted
Okay.
experience.
Right. That's all he wanted people to do is experience meditation and what happens when you meditate. Right.
Right.
And so when people would come to him asking metaphysical questions, asking about God and, reincarnation and whatever, usually he would answer them with silence. Typically, when people ask him about God, Buddha, do you believe in God? Buddha, is there a God? He would just stare at them until they usually ask a different question, or he would simply say, you'll figure it out yourself. And this is usually like in his public sermon, right? Privately, he would talk in detail about the higher realms and different planes of existence and, things like that and more metaphysical concepts. But, he didn't want people to focus on that, is my point. So getting back to most of what he did is he wanted people not to be attached
Yeah.
to things that become problems on the spiritual path. And so,
Right.
for example, thinking that there's only one special way to die.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
if I show light body ascension, everybody's going to think they should also do the same.
Right.
Right. So I can only imagine he's like, no, I'm going to die like everyone else. But he told everyone exactly the second he was going to die. And so everyone gathered around him, waited for him. He gave a last speech. Right. He
Yeah.
goes, okay, now I'm going. He closed his eyes and then he left his physical body.
And didn't he tell his son or one of his disciples to stay?
So yeah, and this is my point to where we can't judge. He specifically appointed four of his chief disciples, one being his son Rahula,
Hmm.
okay, that he wanted those four to stick around until the coming of the next Buddha, which would mean thousands of years into the future.
Right.
Okay, he wanted them to practice and cultivate and achieve that transformation of the body so they could stick around and not die.
Right. Yeah. Then you get into
Okay?
immortality.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Buddha didn't want to do that, but he told his son to do that.
Right.
Right. So it's like, wow.
Right. And there has to be some kind of releasing of ego with that, some kind of karma that where he, like where he's releasing. I mean, that just feels like a big act of humility.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind is how they describe it at the level of a Buddha, at the level of an ascended master, or even a very enlightened being. One of the capabilities they specifically describe is because by the time you get there, and even along the way, what you're really doing is you're practicing expanding your consciousness.
Right.
Okay, to where most of us, like you and me, our consciousness is generally locked into our body all day long. Only at night, when the body's asleep, are we able to maybe leave our body. Okay, and other people leave their body and go either astrally or other dimensions or in the dream world or whatever. But
Right.
usually we're locked into our body.
Right.
Okay, so as you cultivate in the spiritual path, and this is another thing I would ask that person who comes to me and says, hey, am I going to ascend? The next question would be, are you able to create multiple bodies of consciousness? And the reason I say that is because what happens is as you cultivate an expanded level of consciousness, primarily through meditative practices, what you're able to do is you're able to unplug from your sheaths or bodies, as they're called, right? The physical, the astral, emotional, the mental body, the causal body, the spiritual body, the five traditional bodies in the ancient traditions, right?
Right.
Meditation teaches you how to unplug from them,
Right.
not be caught in them, to expand your consciousness
Yeah.
and be able to function from that point of view, right? And you
Right.
got to start with your physical body and you learn how to unplug from that. And, you know, this most people, most advanced people can start doing.
Yeah.
But what starts to happen is if you can successfully unplug in a healthy way from your physical body, okay, what that gives you, it gives you the ability now to split your consciousness in two in the body outside of it. So what that means is in you can now energetically bilocate. So you could have your body here talking to me, at the same time project a literal duplicate, energetic astral duplicate of yourself, say in Egypt, to check out the pyramids. And you're really there, not just mentally projecting, but you are really there and here. But now your consciousness is able to handle both splits. You follow?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Because you're able to now, it's so expanded, you can now partition it off into two full beings. So someone who can maybe see clairvoyantly in Egypt will suddenly see you go, oh, what are you doing here? And your astral self could speak independently of you speaking to me,
Right.
right? And that's what high level masters are doing all the time. That's how
Right.
they're doing it. And that's how the stories of them doing it come about, right? And then eventually you're able to do multiple selves,
Right.
right? That's how these high level true gurus, true masters, are able to send themselves to different, disciples and students all over the world, or, do things that they need
Right.
to,
Okay.
right? So I would ask you, can you do that?
Right.
If they were to come to me and say, hey, I'm ready for ascension. So, okay, can you do that? Because if you can, I would say, well, no, you're probably not gonna, you're not even close to ascension.
Time to meditate.
Yeah.
Meditate a few more hours a day.
And
Yeah.
what's cool is then they describe that as you continue to expand your consciousness, you gain mastery over 3D and you're able to then manifest a 3D version of yourself. Okay? That's true bilocation, right? That's what those masters are doing when they're truly
Right.
bilocating.
A true, like a 3D version.
Right?
Right.
Who can speak independently while you're speaking over here,
Right.
has his own thoughts.
Right. Yeah.
We have enough trouble with our own thoughts. Imagine having two of us holding two minds, right?
Yeah.
But those beings can do that. And then the ultimate is the highest level beings in the cosmos can create multiple 3D emanations of themselves in space time at will anywhere, right? And those are the level of, the highest cosmic beings are able to do that. And
Right. And probably some of the beings helping us on the planet at this time.
oh yeah,
For
right.
sure.
Oh yeah.
The visitors, or just the higher visitors, possibly
Right.
higher, planetary systems, or Venus even.
Right. And I would add, this whole spiritual path, ascension path, enlightenment path, obviously is not exclusive to planet Earth.
Right.
Right. And in the old Indian traditions, the Chinese systems, they talk about how, beings from different galaxies, from different planetary systems would visit, talking about where they're at in their spiritual path.
Hmm.
And they're doing the same stuff. They're meditating. There are stories of the Buddha going in his energy body, traversing to different dimensional realms, teaching them how to meditate properly.
Right. That's so cool. He was
ETs
the
how to
alien.
properly meditate or to advance or to awaken in their meditative. They may be already advanced, but they're like, you're still not fully awakened. So he'd go to some higher heavenly realm and go, okay, guys, here's what you need to realize. Get this, and you can now upgrade to the next heavenly realm. Right? They describe that.
Yeah, I love those stories where it, like, other beings are coming to him asking for help.
Right.
And he
And
has chosen a human body on Earth.
what's cool is, even, like beyond the Buddha, when you look at some of the Indian stories, okay, the Indian
Yeah.
myths, and if people haven't investigated those Indian myths, I suggest if you're in a spiritual path, start looking at those myths, looking at what's in the Puranas. That's a collection of most of the stories from the Vedic tradition.
Mm.
There is stuff in there that will help you make sense of a lot of what's going on. For example, kind of what you're alluding to, there are stories of um, being high level deities, as they're called, high level cosmic beings from high heavenly planes. Okay. Even in the Hindu tradition, the chief deity of our cosmos is Brahma, 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 right? The creator God. Okay. But in Hinduism, there's a distinction between Brahma and prime creator. Okay. So Brahma is not the ultimate God,
Hmm.
but Brahma is the God of our universe in the Hindu tradition, right?
Oh, right.
So Brahma acts as a being, okay? A being who interacts with sentient beings. That's part of his creation. And so there are stories in the ancient world where literally Brahma comes down, Brahma or Shiva or Vishnu, these transcendent beings in the Hindu tradition, they come down to interact with enlightened humans on earth,
Hmm.
asking them for help or advice. And the idea is these enlightened beings have transcended the matrix. But Brahma is still part of the matrix. Do you follow?
Right.
He created the matrix and is part of the matrix. But a truly enlightened being has transcended the matrix, like Neo in the Matrix movie, right? And therefore can function independently of the matrix, right?
Interesting.
So therefore, they have access to things that they can do that beings in the matrix cannot do. So therefore, they would be sought after for counsel or even help with certain things.
Hmm.
Right?
Right. So cool. Okay. So you were talking about like kind of powers that these beings could do, like bilocation and, astral travel. And how would you say those abilities, differ in someone who's on the spiritual path from, like, say, a what we've heard of as like dark magicians? They're on left-hand paths that actually cultivate these abilities and can do the same things. What would you say is the difference between those two people?
Well, the big difference is, the dark magicians, the left hand, as they call them in the East, the people on the left hand path, the black left hand path, um, they are so attached to their ego and their sense of self,
Yeah.
right? And so they are in the way they would describe it is they are trying to transform their self, their ego, into a godlike being with superpowers who ideally won't die. Okay. That's kind of the end goal if you kind of look into it,
It's
right?
immortality. Yeah. There's a lot of
Immortality in some level, or they want powers at some level. Okay.
power. Yeah.
Right. And so they will do a lot of the same practices that are inherent in real spiritual traditions, forms of meditation. And again, you see this in the ancient Indian literature and the ancient world literatures where these sorcerers, these black magicians are doing high level meditations, powerful meditations for days,
Right.
right? And the thing is, high level concentration ability gives you access to powers. Okay, it's like the Force in Star Wars. It gives you access to the Force, and then they use it, right, for their own selfish reasons.
So high level, so concentration practice
Concentration practice gives you access to
is
these things.
okay.
right?
So that's what
So,
they're focusing on. And what are they leaving out?
so they're leaving out transcending the ego, right? True connection to divinity, right? A true divine source. They're forgetting how the East would describe it is they're still caught up in ignorance and attachment to their lower self. And they've fully forgotten that their self is much more than that,
Right.
right?
Yeah. It's
Beyond the lower self is the higher self and
right.
is the greatest self that is, according like to these ancient traditions, a spark of God, right? And the
Right.
authentic spiritual traditions are trying to help you overcome that ignorance and remember that you truly are divine,
Right.
right? But the dark magicians, their definition of divine is different,
Yeah, true. It's
right?
it's the will, right?
Yes,
Yeah. It's like the little I versus the big I.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I see the big difference. Dark magicians are stuck on the little eye.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, and what do you think is the most helpful teaching from the Vedic tradition?
Good question.
Jump.
The Vedic slash Hindu tradition, it's, in my opinion, there are so many gems in it, especially for non-Hindus and even for, Hindus born into the religion,
Yeah.
understanding some of the specific gems there that you don't find in the other religions laid out as clearly,
Right.
right? And so, one of the big areas that's really beautiful in the Vedic tradition in Hinduism is their description and explanation of God,
Yeah.
pure idea of what God is, right? So, you know, the they describe in detail the difference in how you conceive God and how that can affect your practices. And
Hmm.
they describe how, based on that difference in your conception of God, how you will relate to God. Okay, so to give more detail, the highest idea of God in Hinduism is the idea of Brahman, Brahman, not Brahma. Brahma is the creator God. Brahman is the Godhead, if you will, that is the prime creator of the multiverse. In Hinduism, there's a multiverse,
Okay.
okay? Not just one universe, a multiverse.
Of course.
And so Brahman is the foundational prime origin of all that is. Okay, it is the highest conception of God that most people can understand beyond something with human qualities. So the way they describe it is there's no name, there's no form, there's no conception of Brahman.
Mm.
Okay, so it's like this pure potential source for all that is. Now, then Hinduism, they go on and say, okay, look, that being said, a human mind cannot connect to it. Therefore, a human mind needs something to connect to. So therefore, the idea of Ishwar, personal God, has
Mm.
to develop. So a human mind needs a personal God if they choose to connect to God on their spiritual path. Okay? And again, in Hinduism, they give you the option to not choose to connect to God on a spiritual path. Okay? But, which is very interesting, but usually if you choose to connect to God on a spiritual path, the idea is, okay, understand that the personal God is different than the impersonal, transcendent God.
Hmm.
And most people who connect to God are really connecting to a personal God through their mind.
Right.
Now, but they do go on to say that you can connect to the impersonal God in a state of enlightenment. but that's what enlightenment is. The point of enlightenment is to transcend the body and the mind, to realize that you are nothing but a spark of the ultimate Brahman, right? You
Right.
are a wave in the ocean of God.
Right.
So liberation is realizing you are the wave, right? But to realizing that you're still a distinct wave compared to the wave next to you,
Right.
but that wave is still the same, right? And so the personal God Ishwar, they tell you, look, you can choose to connect to God however you want, however you see, feel, think, call God, right? And that's one of the main beauties of Hinduism. And then you see that in a Hindu family, one
Right.
person may connect to God through Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
one person may connect to God through Shiva, one person may connect to God through the divine feminine Durga or Kali or Parvati or Shakti, right? One person may connect to God through the impersonal. I don't want to call God anything. I want to go straight to Brahman. Great, fine. Okay.
Right. It reminds me
Well,
of your mom's shrine when you were a kid.
right. Like I told you, in, in a typical way for Hindus to grow up is they see their mothers have a shrine that they do, daily worship ceremony to their
Yeah.
respective deities. But on that shrine, the Hindu philosophy is more the merrier.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not about just one. What's the right one? It's like more the merrier. So
Right.
on my mother's shrine, I grew up seeing Christ, Virgin Mary, Buddha, Krishna, Durga, Shiva, Hanuman, right?
Yeah.
And to her, those were all pathways to God.
Right.
Every single one was equally seen. And but a Hindu also knows that each one of those can have a a specific job.
Right.
Okay, so it's not like either or. It's like
Right.
this like non-dual perspective. Like okay, they're all pathways to God, but
Right.
yet if I'm having troubles in life and I'm feeling like obstacles and blocks and I can't get through them, I
Right.
can turn to Ganesh, the
Yeah.
remover of obstacles, right?
Right.
Or if I want abundance, I can connect to Lakshmi.
Right.
But then you ask them, who is God to you? They'll go, oh, God is God. Or they might say, oh, when I really pray, in general, I pray to Vishnu.
Right.
And they'll be like, oh, but is Vishnu different than like my God? And the Hindu will go, no, it's the same. What do you mean?
Yeah, they get confused when
Right,
you try like a Christian's idea of God is very confusing, I have noticed to
right,
most of to the Hindus I have met.
right.
Like
That, that's very unfortunate,
it
and
is.
like a Hindu like myself growing up in a Christian world like America. I went to a Catholic school, right?
Right.
My parents put me in a Catholic school. Hindus don't worry about conversion. Your child being
Right.
converted, right? So because to them,
They're like cool. And
it's all
Hinduism is matriarchal.
right,
They're not evangelical. Like you can only be a Hindu if your mother is a Hindu. And they're
right,
not, but they're not evangelical, but everyone is welcome,
right,
which is a very different ideology than what I grew up with.
right,
Whereas you're desperately trying to pull as many people in as you possibly can in order to save your own soul.
right. And in Hinduism, there's no external salvation, right?
Right.
You can worship God all you want, right? But you understand that God is not going to save you.
Right.
You have to do the work yourself.
You have to do the work yourself because they haven't lost the meditation practices. You can still
Right,
see the practices in their culture. You see monks on the street. They feed them. They give them, you know, food or shelter or whatever they need. It's like built
right,
into the culture, and that we have completely lost that
right.
here. Very
And
interesting.
one advantage of, like I was saying, when you have an expanded view of God like this,
Right.
It takes away the confusion and you know the ill feelings one usually has when bad stuff happens to yourself or the world, and you wonder, how could God do this?
Yeah.
How could God create the Holocaust? How could God create death? Right? Why does God kill babies? Those thoughts, right, only come from a very limited view of God, in my opinion. A Hindu grounded in their understanding of their religion would never think like that.
How would they think?
Well, they would think, look, God is transcendent. All of this is part of God, the good and the bad. And these things playing out really have nothing to do with God's will.
Hmm.
Because remember, the Brahman is the ultimate form of God in the Hindu's mind, right?
Right.
And the Brahman idea is creation is part of Brahman. Brahman can interfere as a personal God
Yeah.
through that,
Yeah.
but doesn't have to, right? And the idea that both light and dark are part of the creation is kind of inherent in Hinduism.
Right.
God isn't trying to fight a Satan,
Right.
right? There's no antagonist to God
Right.
in this expanded view, right? There just is God. That's all there is.
Right.
Underneath that, you can have divisions of separation, right? A light and
Right.
dark.
Yeah. And so
But
really, these things happening are just what would you say? So what would they say that a bad thing happening is?
cause and effect,
Okay.
right? We're
Like
seeing the
an
end
emanation
result.
separation, maybe from an ancestor or a past life?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the big question is, okay, why did evil arise in the first place? It's kind of what you're getting to. And like, why is there darkness and, the playing out of darkness and
Right.
pain in general, trauma, pain. Why is that so inherent? And, the the cosmology of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, the ancient traditions, they describe this creation. We're in the middle,
Right.
okay? Heavenly realms above, hellish realms below. But that's how it was constructed, okay? Before humans were conscious, right? That's how the cosmos is constructed in this worldview. Us in the middle, sentient beings with bodies, physical bodies, who feel the light and dark equally in the middle. But there are realms where the darkness is stronger. There are realms where the light is stronger,
Right.
right? So it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want to experience more light, cultivate yourself where you're reborn into higher realms and heavenly realms, and you
Yeah.
can live heavenly lives for as long as you want, right? If you want to experience more materiality, right? More density, okay, go ahead, free will. And then you'll find yourself being reborn into, they call them hellish realms, but it's not hellish in the terms of the Christian idea of hellish, which
Right.
there are those in the hellish realms, but hellish realms also means, you could even think about, like, the way they even depict it is like a planetary system that is so full of technology and AI.
Yeah.
That's all there is, and that would qualify as a hellish realm.
Certainly qualifies for me. Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
so that's kind of what this is alluding to. Like, they talk about hellish realms where the people are so comfortable, the beings are so comfortable, they're abundant, they have all their needs met, but they're lazy, and they can even be good people, but they're not spiritually awakening anymore. They're just stuck, and they're just, using up resources and just happy where they are.
Right.
That qualifies as a hellish realm in this model.
Mm.
You follow?
Hmm.
So like, it's all relative,
Okay.
but we're in the middle, able to experience both.
Yeah.
And I think the point is, as they even describe it, like, nowhere else is the potential for cultivation and evolution the greatest and quickest.
That makes
You're
sense.
forced to feel pain.
Right.
or pleasure as intensely as we do here,
Yeah.
right? It will push you where you need to go,
Right.
right? And so they talk about how higher level beings, heavenly beings, hellish beings, other dimensional beings often are jealous of
Hmm.
physically incarnate beings because they know that we're clearing our karma like that. The potential to clear our karma is so quick, right?
Yeah.
But imagine in a higher dimensional realm, time is a lot slower. Okay. You got an issue and you're stuck with that issue for a long time. It could be a good issue or a bad issue. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so you may spend thousands of years in one body experiencing the same thing over and over again,
Hmm.
right? And they
Yeah.
look down upon us and go, man, I wish I was there. I could just kind of work through this stuff a lot quicker.
Which is such a funny perspective because so many of us feel like it takes so long here, that we wish we were, in our astral body, or we wish the opposite. Yeah. Interesting.
Right.
Definitely makes you, rethink the idea of like true escapism, or the fact, the idea that suicide is an escape, because it's not.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So what is Vedanta? Is this Vedanta? Is this idea that you're talking about
It
Vedanta?
actually is. Vedanta is drawn from the Upanishads. The Upanishads are like philosophical commentaries over thousands of years by literally wise, enlightened beings. They're writing about stuff, okay? So
Right.
it's their compilation of stuff, their commentary about the nature of reality and everything. It's called the Upanishads, right? That's kind of like the spiritual gem of Hinduism, right? And so Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. And so you hear me now?
Okay.
So Vedanta means the end of the Vedas, is what it means. And so the
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna try this again. You said the Vedanta means the end of the Vedas?
Vedanta means end of the Vedas specifically. But what that means is it's the collection of commentary called the Upanishads written by enlightened beings about everything. So it's like the philosophical gem of Hinduism. And
Okay.
in there is what I've been talking about, the description of God, the nature of reality,
Right.
different distinctions of how to think about God. Right.
Right.
Vedanta actually goes into three categories of how to view God, right? Which I find utterly fascinating, but it encompasses literally like how any religion sees God. It can fit
Yeah.
into one of these categories, right? So one is the non-dualistic perspective, right? Which kind of talks about where God and all of creation is the same. There's no difference, fully non-dual, right? Called pantheism in the West.
Okay.
And so the next one is called qualified non-dualism, as it's described, panentheism, which means
Right.
that all of creation is part of God, but there's still a part of God that is independent of creation
Right.
simultaneously. Okay. And then the third is full dualism, that God and creation are fully separate,
Right.
which is like the Christian view, Christian Islamic, Judaic view. Right. But these three views or philosophies in Vedanta are given equal, which is what I find fascinating is,
Mhm.
are given equal importance. Neither one is better or worse.
Right.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
And there have been numerous like exponents, proponents of these traditions throughout Indian history, very wise enlightened beings in each of those three traditions.
That's what I find so interesting,
Right.
is that they've all kind of reached the same level of enlightenment through through opposite beliefs
Right.
or, belief system.
Which means ultimately it doesn't matter what you believe in terms of God.
Right. Right. It's like and especially it doesn't matter what your belief system is, meditation is helpful.
Right. Right. Getting back to the original thing, meditation is a journey inward, right?
Right.
Kind of grounding all this back into something practical. It's a journey inward, right? It allows you to start looking inward. You practice with an anchor that helps stabilize your mind in the first stages, right? You start to get used to that, staying with your anchor more and more and more, and not fight your thoughts or sensations. Again, this is where the mindfulness kicks in, where the goal is to literally stay on your anchor while you allow the thoughts and sensations to come and go
Yeah.
without trying to control them, interfere with them, right? And so as you start doing that, you start to unplug from your thoughts and
Right.
sensations, which feels like you start to observe them clearer. This observer witness starts to become more prominent in you. You can see your thoughts more clearly, right? You
Right.
can notice your sensations more clearly. And then hence with practice become more non-reactive to them.
Right.
The more you can observe, it creates this healthy distance, this true healthy detachment, as I call it, right? Between
Right.
your thoughts and sensations and your awareness.
Right.
You can see them playing out constantly in real
Yeah.
time. Okay. And then you can act upon them if you want or not.
Right.
More control of yourself. So it starts changing
Right.
how you act, how you behave, how you handle your triggers, your
And it's
traumas.
interesting because we call that detaching from your thoughts, but really it's becoming more embodied. It's
Right.
becoming more of you. So it's actually less detached because if we were just connecting to our thoughts and our little I ego, right, that creates real detachment. That's when people
Right.
become actually detached.
And to be
This
clear, it's like helpful to understand detached from what, right?
from reality,
Detaching from your thoughts and little ego, but you're really anchoring, again, back to
right,
anchoring you're anchoring
right,
into your center true self,
right,
right? That's why you're not detaching from that, actually. You're actually anchoring into that.
right.
And you're literally centering and opening the doorway to your higher self,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is why all of my like intuition development, we start with meditation. We start there, that builds the foundation to create this awareness, this neutral awareness, and then be able to, like you said, open the door to the higher self, get that
Right.
connection to our true self, which is intuitive.
Exactly. The natural state is intuition.
It's natural. It is
Right.
natural. We just have to kind of quiet down all the distractions, all the entrainments of, just being in that beta wave of just always thinking and striving and,
Right.
kind of this societal pushing outside of yourself.
And I will add the natural state of the higher self is also peace, contentment,
Yeah.
joy, bliss, awareness,
Right.
right? All those things we want. Right?
Right.
The point is, it's already there. If you can quiet your mind and body enough,
Right.
it starts to filter up clearly. The light can shine through, right? The
Right.
thinking. Now, one thing I want to add to all of this before we go is,
Yeah.
there can be a sense with everything we've talked about that, oh my gosh, why even be spiritual if it's like so long and arduous and you have to do all this stuff and wow, and I'm a peon in the beginning. Is there any hope for me? Well, here's the thing. Like we were saying, the true nature of the higher self is all those things that we're one, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, there's all kinds of practices and techniques to activate Kundalini and, still your mind and transform the elements and all those things. Okay, but the reality is if you can practice anchoring into your higher self and becoming less reactive and neutral to your thoughts and sensations. Okay. What happens is naturally in time, your chi and prana starts to activate. Okay. Because the basic rule is this: the more relaxed and still you get, the more energy activates.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
as you're getting more still, and you
Yeah.
get more still just by not getting attached to your thoughts and sensations, which
Yeah.
means you don't push them away and you don't cling to them.
Yeah.
Again, it's mindfulness practice, right? You have to practice that. But as you get good at that, you allow these things to come and go inside of you quicker and quicker, easier and easier, while you stay anchored more effortlessly. Okay.
Right.
Eventually it reverses where it almost feels like it takes effort to look away from your anchor.
Right.
Okay. So it's like, okay, I can be here forever. And you're just noticing now everything kind of pass, thoughts, sensations, whatever.
Yeah.
Then the more you do that, what happens is eventually the mind starts quieting down. Because if you're not attaching to anything, the mind eventually loses energy and it starts to quiet down. Same
Yeah.
with the body.
Right.
Okay. And as things quiet down, your natural chi starts to arise and activate. Okay. And as that happens, you start feeling energy in the body without trying.
Right.
But you deal with that the same way. Don't react to it. Don't get super excited. Okay. Or if something's uncomfortable, don't get like, oh my gosh, something bad is happening to me. I should stop. No, stay neutral. Stay with your anchor, whatever it is. Let it play out, and it will play out. It'll pass in time if you keep with it. You keep doing that again more and more. Enough energy activates and clears to where your natural Kundalini process happens without trying now. Okay? Stick to the same basic program. Stay with your anchor effortlessly. Let go. Be aware. Stay aware of everything. That's the key, though. Okay? No matter what you're feeling or thinking, stay aware of it, but don't attach to any of it.
Right.
Things keep unfolding inside of you. Eventually, Kundalini will start to awaken naturally without trying. Okay? The point is, it's built into us. That's the beauty of this.
Right.
You feel enough, automatically things start to engage and happen.
Yeah. It
It's
sounds kind of like
programmed into us.
the hardest work is at the beginning. It sounds like that what you were saying. Like the most work is at the beginning, and after a while, it starts kind of pulling you, and it becomes easier and easier.
Well, things that were harder in the beginning become easier, but then harder stuff comes up because as things become easier, more pain and pleasure comes to your face to deal with.
Okay.
It can seem harder then.
Okay. So you
Right.
do go through the cycle
Right.
again.
You
You know,
keep cycling.
you
What
have to be
becomes
okay.
easier is how you handle pain and
Right.
pleasure. It becomes easier, right? But there may
Yeah.
be more pain and pleasure to handle, but now you can handle it better
Right.
and more effortlessly, which then keeps accelerating everything.
Keeps going. Yeah.
Right? It just keeps going. And what keeps going is what I'm talking about. Kundalini awakens, activates, your consciousness starts expanding. You start entering naturally states of samadhi. You start traversing through those. And then the beauty of it is, and this is what the Buddha specifically taught. His thing was, look, when he was alive, there were already advanced ways to meditate, advanced ways to activate Kundalini, expand consciousness. He knew all of those. Okay. But he was like, look, if you just do this, practice mindfulness with a basic anchor the whole way through, the stuff naturally starts to happen.
Right.
You will fully awaken. And there have been numerous people throughout the world, okay? Obviously in Buddhist traditions, but also in other traditions, that all they're doing is this basic form.
Right.
Okay. And things naturally start to happen. Right. And a great story I have is this one lady called Deepa Ma. D-I-P-A is the first name. The next name is M-A. Her name is Deepa, but we call her Mother Deepa, so Deepa Ma. So there's a book you can get on her, short paperback read. I highly recommend everyone to get it. We might even have it on the bookshelf right now.
Like,
Very quick read.
Yeah.
But Deepa Ma was a very normal wife, mother, lady, okay, who didn't even start meditating until like her um, kid was, born and a young infant, and so she always wanted to meditate, but she never had a chance. She kind of grew up in kind of a restrictive Indian household, so her husband kept encouraging her to meditate, but she was always like, I don't have time. No, no, no. And eventually, what happened was, I think the husband passed away, or maybe right before he passed away, she learned how to meditate
Mm.
in this way, in a very traditional Theravada Buddhist way, where you just find an anchor, apply mindfulness. That's all you do. Okay. And she's also doing the Vipassana scan as well, which is kind of like a derivative of that, where you move your attention through your body, focusing on
Yeah.
sensation. That's all you do, right?
Yeah.
So all she would do, she would wake up like 3 or 4 in the morning while the kids were asleep, meditate for a couple hours, right? Fit it in when she could. And of course, she had like some karmic stuff, obviously, with all of this, and
Obviously.
life was meant to be this, but she
Yeah.
gained full enlightenment in her lifetime.
Wow.
Okay, within, I forget how many years of doing this, maybe like a decade of doing this, but she gained full enlightenment to the extent where she had all the traditional signs of enlightenment that they talk about in these traditions.
Mm.
Okay, and she could display powers.
You're right.
People saw her doing things, and she would play it off. Like, people would, like, her neighbors would look out of their window and see her levitating up to a tree grabbing some fruit, right? Or she'd be putting the clothes out in the sun to dry while she's levitating, right? And so people would see her in two places at once all the time.
Right.
And then later on in some interviews, they would ask her, like, you were doing, people were seeing you doing these powers, can you still do those? She's like, oh, no, no, I can't do them anymore. They were like, why? She was like, well, when I was doing those, I was actually, my teacher told me to do some very hardcore concentration practices for like 3 or 4 hours a day. And I was doing that. They told me if I did that, these things would happen. And they did, but I stopped doing those. So it went away. So if I wanted to do those again, I'd just probably have to meditate for an hour or two and they'd come back. But there's no
Right.
need. But the point is,
Yeah.
this is all she did, and all this happened to her. But the
Right.
beauty is, she had no ego about it.
Yeah.
And that is true enlightenment, right? Like, you don't care how powerful you are, right? A true enlightened being wouldn't
You're
care
not attached to your
what they can
ability
do,
to levitate.
right? She's
Right.
not walking around teaching how to levitate,
Showing off.
or even showing off, right? Although some may do that for a certain purpose, right? Like
Yeah.
Christ did and things like that, right? But the point
Yeah.
is, my point is, a normal person like Deepa Ma
Yeah.
was able to cultivate in a short period of time,
To this
which
level.
means she didn't do any Kundalini awakening practices. She
Right.
didn't do any transformation of the body practices, any samadhi-based practices to really expand the mind. None of that,
Yeah.
right? No traditional forms of yoga, anything like that.
Yeah.
She
I
just
was getting emotional while you were talking about her. But would you say that she has past life connections to
probably,
human work?
well, that's the thing. Yeah, for sure.
Because it took her such a relatively short amount of time.
She probably had to clear out a lot of karma, the way she grew up, and she went through a lot of hardship. Like, she lost a couple of children at a young age. She was married at a young age. She lost her first husband.
Okay.
She was in poverty for a while, blah, 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 right? So I think she had to clear out a lot of karma,
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And again, these are
Life
things that,
does that.
higher level beings can't do where they're at,
Okay.
or other ETs in places they can't do these things because they're kind of stuck where they are.
And
But
that's a beautiful testament to, why some people do choose to come in with difficult karma to just burn it off quick. It's not necessarily like you're a bad in a past life being punished
right,
the way we like to think in kind of dualist thinking. But it could just be we're gonna get this out of the way quick so that we can burn off this karma and really get, propel us into higher states.
Right. So I highly encourage everyone to read that book. Just find it on Amazon. Cheap, it's short, but
Awesome.
it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Every
Yes.
time I see it, it makes me cry.
I know. I was totally crying as you were talking. And we have it here. I totally recommend it. And I totally actually need to read it myself now that I've been crying while you were talking about her. So I just want to kind of finish up with you telling people where to find you.
So my website currently is karunacenter.com with a K, Karuna center.com.
Okay.
Now that is a website to my full center, which includes natural health care as well as personal development, and it's in the process of being able to hold more of a academy or institute for spiritual knowledge, right? So that's in the works. But I have natural health care through there, but as well as meditation coaching, mentoring, spiritual consulting. For what I really like to do is help people who are on a spiritual path and they want specific guidance to really advance from where they're at, to get to the next level, and what that means based on where they're at, or helping them understand what they're going through. And especially if you've had your kundalini starting to awaken, you're probably going through stuff that may be very confusing.
Right.
Or,
Right.
even in a lot of people term them, you're going through, spiritual initiations,
Yeah.
and navigating those are very important to navigate them properly, right? And that takes proper mindfulness
Yeah.
and being able to meditate. And in general, helping people advance in meditation, right? Getting to the next level, how to properly start traversing that journey inward,
Right.
and naturally getting these things activated without trying too hard. And then if you want to specifically cultivate different things, you can,
Right.
but creating a foundation of mindfulness, of insight, of meditation, and then learning how to add stuff on top of that based on whatever you're wanting to focus on.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will put the information on where to find you also in the description under this video, so people can reach out and contact you, send you an email, or sign up for a session that you work remotely, you work in person, in Nashville, but also remotely. So people can reach out and find you. Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you
I'm
so
so
much.
glad that we got to do this together today, husband and wife on Zoom together in the same house. Totally cool. Very fun. So thank you so much for sharing this, and we'll have to do this again soon. And everyone, just let me know what questions you have. Let Suman know what questions you have. Leave questions in the comments so that he knows kind of what to talk about next. He's probably going to be starting his own channel, and this is going to be here. But, in the meantime, we can come back and do more of these conversations together, more of these premieres, and hopefully answer all of your questions. So just let us know what you think, and we will see you next time.